Are you ready? The Kornelia Stephanie Show. Wake up to love, your call to action. Join Kornelia as she empowers others to live heaven on earth. Kornelia teaches listeners how to be the authority over yourself, embracing your inner guru. Feel yourself uplifted into limitless expansion, integrating ease and grace in a changing world. This show will cover topics such as unconditional love, your physical body, how to be in extraordinary relationships, create financial and emotional wealth, embracing entrepreneurship in the new earth. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Kornelia Stephanie Show. It's Friday, and I am so excited to host today's show. Welcome to the new earth. You know, when I listened to this intro that I wrote more than, I don't know, what is it, 2023 now. I started my career here with Transformation Talk Radio in 2017, and I wrote that intro, and it just makes me happy every time I listen to it, and still gives me so much hope and validation that I'm doing the right thing. So this particular segment on Fridays that we host and that we facilitate is called Stories of Hope. And this is what it is about. It's about sharing our struggles, sharing our failures, sharing our wins. Now more than ever before, we need stories that inspire hope. The stories that you tell your children and your grandchildren, your neighbors, your customers, and your clients are stories of how your life experience mattered. You matter. Telling stories brings people together. In this episode, our desire is to inspire the listener that all life experiences, struggles, failures, the pains of our past have victories and many times happy endings. No matter what you're facing in your life, sharing your stories will help others heal. It will inspire us to keep going and find creative ways to make life living a joyous story to tell with many chapters of triumph. So without further ado, my first guest today, Margaret Fields. She's a coach and she's a facilitator, and she helps many people in her therapy sessions, creating a safe space. So when people come in feeling overwhelmed, but finding the right person, finding the right therapist can change your life. She believes that the foundation of the therapeutic process is built on rapport. And she understands that being vulnerable and sharing areas of your life can be difficult. She's here to make that easier for you by collaborating with you to reach your desired goals. Her style has been described as the antithesis of a note-scratching cliche therapist. She creates a safe and supportive space to listen and provide strategies that will allow you to improve the quality of your life. And really, isn't that what it is that we're all doing? To improve the quality of our life, not from what we've lived before in the old earth, but really to come into the new and embrace what's in our authentic nature. So Margaret draws from several modalities of therapy, and she applies interventions that align with the needs of each individual. Welcome to the show today, Margaret.
Thanks, Kornelia. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great.
I just returned from vacation, so I might look a little red, but it's really a tan glow.
Yeah, it is a glow. We appreciate your glow because right now we're here in Washington State, and we've certainly experienced, we have had a few days of sunshine, but not nearly enough. So we appreciate the glow that you're transmitting to us over the airwaves. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. As we know, vitamin D can play such an instrumental role in our mental health, believe it or not. So
yeah. So where did you go on your vacation?
St. Thomas and St. John, and it was lovely.
Amazing. So was that a planned vacation that you'd been looking forward to for a while?
Yeah, it was a girls' trip, actually. It was 4 generations. It was myself, my mother, and my 2 daughters.
Oh,
So we had some girl time. It was lovely.
oh, that's so important right now. I,
Yeah.
I can't imagine, anything more important than having that connection, making space for our families and friends, the people that we love, right? Hanging out with the people that we love and going on vacation sounds ideal.
Yeah. It's so true. Just to reset and recharge.
So
And just
you're a therapist, you help people. What
Mhm.
got you started in that? So I'm sure there was something that was happening in your life that motivated you to uh, transform something in your life and then support others.
Yeah. I always knew that I wanted to be in the human services field. And it wasn't until I grew up and went through my own experiences and healed my own trauma that I decided that this was the best field for me. It was sort of designed for me, if you will, based on what I went through. And I wanted to be in in a field that would provide services to help other people overcome difficulties and trauma in their own lives. So here I am. And as you know, we're called like the wounded healers in our field.
Yeah. So I'm curious, and I'm sure the audience is curious too. When we're talking about trauma, can you give us an idea of some of the trauma that you healed and what you've gone through? And then now it feels like you are living beyond that trauma, like that's not even a cell memory in your physical body anymore or in your life. And I want to set it up for the listener to be able to identify themselves in what you're saying, that, oh, yeah, I can identify with this trauma. And so giving that hope that, oh, I can move beyond that trauma. And what does life look like now?
Yeah. Okay. So there were three, I would say, moments that were the impetus for change in my life. So the first one was the loss of my father at a very formative time in my life. And I was only 19 at the time. And then the other thing was growing up with a mother who is a narcissist, has NPD. And then lastly, deciding after an unhealthy marriage that it was time for me to return to college as an adult learner, which was a big challenge. I had already had two children. I was going through a divorce, met the love of my life while I was in college, and found out while I was doing undergrad and applying to an accelerated program for grad school that I was pregnant with my third child. So I was in grad school. I had my daughter in July and started grad school in the end of August. So that was a very big challenge. But ultimately, I learned at a very young age, and I believe it was just through loss of, my father, relationships, preconceived notions about my life, that I realized death in relationships, chapters, whatever it might be, can be our greatest teacher.
Mm.
And so, with that said, going through my childhood and growing up with a mother who, at the time when I was young, I didn't really understand or have a label to grasp what was happening to me when I was growing up, being surrounded by toxicity every single day, imposing these negative beliefs into my life, self-limiting beliefs, just self-doubt, insecurities. And the older I became, and just that self-agency that I developed, the relationship I developed with over time, then I realized, wow, I was in such an abusive relationship. And till this day, my mother is still who she is. She's getting older, requires more care and attention. And I try to just navigate that the best I can, and not have it impede upon who I've become. That's most important, I believe, for anyone going through a difficult relationship or a challenging time, to not allow it to impact the authenticity of who you are.
Yeah, first of all, any loss, with a parent or a partner or a child, right?
Mm,
Any type of loss will definitely uh, crack open the the soul, crack open the physical experience to find out what's going on here and really start getting us onto our spiritual path. I think is what that is about. Also to look at what happens to us when we die and how do we live this life without the beloveds, without the people that we've loved, right? How do we continue on? So that loss, I certainly can identify with that. And sounds like your father was an amazing man, and he
Thank
was a
you.
good source of love and support for you. And then your mother, the narcissist, I don't know what the statistic is, but I think I read somewhere that narcissists don't change. They stay this way.
There
You,
is no cure.
there
There
is
is,
no cure.
there is no cure. There are methods. It's 40%, I believe. I think it's 40% um, are diagnosed. And there's usually a comorbidity with that. And that means typically either borderline personality disorder accompanies the NPD diagnosis. And oftentimes they're not coming in for treatment because they're not recognizing within themselves that there's something going on.
Because
So
they're always projecting it out onto the other person. And they're always putting that out onto the other person. Sounds like your mother did that to you to try to project her own inadequacies that she was thinking and feeling about herself onto you.
absolutely, absolutely. Particularly with mothers, they see their children as an extension of themselves and
Mm.
demand the need for attention. It's a very egocentric mindset. And you would think, okay, egocentric, a young child. And oftentimes I see that in my mother. So the world really revolves around her. And again, projecting fears. So it was constantly living in accordance to what my mother's personal beliefs were. And I had to go through identifying what beliefs belonged to me and what beliefs did not.
Yeah. And that must be, again, so hard when because again, that core mother wound, the core wounding,
Exactly.
right? The core wounding is activated then. And then there you are, the helpless, vulnerable, wounded inner child that has never gotten the emotional needs met,
That's right.
right?
Yes. Yeah. Compounded with the father wounds, the absence of my dad. So it was almost comparable to not having that parental figure to be able to turn to when I was, struggling or going through difficult times. And so you process grief while that parent is still alive, grieving the idea of a conventional and healthy mother daughter relationship, which I've never even known, I've never experienced. But now that I have my three children, the one thing that it did teach me was how to not be the way my mother was.
That's a big one, isn't it? It's like the world is always showing us, yes, I want more of this, or no, I don't want it to be like this, right? The world is, our relationships are always showing us where we can begin that work, that deep inner work. Now you're working with clients now, and one of the things that I really loved about your how you articulated the space that you create for
Mhm.
people is that safe space where they can come in and reveal themselves, right? So how
Yeah.
can you set that up for us? What does that look like working with you?
Surely. So when I was saying in my bio, the antithesis of a note scratching therapist, and there are plenty of therapists who do good work, and I really believe that a strength of mine, and just having been told from clients that I work with, I really believe healthy boundaries are important, but also allowing people to go at their pace. So
Mm.
initially, as soon as I meet with a new client, I always encourage people, please take your time in sharing what you want to share, because oftentimes when clients come in, they have a lot to say. There's a sense of urgency, and I always encourage them, move at your pace. I would hate for someone to leave a session and feel overwhelmed with feeling like I said too much, or
Mm.
overthinking the conversation, listening to the unreliable source of information in our minds, which oftentimes happens. So I really try to just start out in a way that allows people to just feel comfortable, sort of like you and I are talking, and the feeling that I received from you, Cornelia, when we first saw one another on screen, just that feeling of feeling embraced, no judgment, And we're all on this journey, really, trying to figure out life. I just have certain modalities and skills and an education to really give me that credibility. But so that's the entry point. And then from there, I always say I will meet you where you're at, but my role is really to just like nudge you along a little bit more so you feel challenged and really hold yourself accountable, because it's not showing up and saying, I went to therapy. It's doing the work after our session. That's really the
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. That sounds so beautiful. It sounds so welcoming, and it sounds a soft place to begin,
Mhm.
right? It sounds like a soft place to begin. So that is right away, makes you feel more open because it's soft. In during the session, there may be things revealed, there may be things that need to be observed and looked at that are painful and traumatic. And having that safe, vulnerable space is so important. How can the audience find you on social media or a website, or how do they get in contact with you?
So margaretfields.com is the best way to get in touch with me. That's my website. And then for social media, it's Margaret Fields Therapy on Facebook and mfields_therapy on Instagram.
Excellent. So, how old are your children?
Oh gosh. So I have a 9-year-old, I have a soon to be 21-year-old, and I have a soon to be 23-year-old.
Wow.
There's that big gap due to my second marriage, which I have to give a shout out to my husband. He's my biggest supporter and has
Oh,
really been such a guiding force in my life. So,
oh, wow. That's wonderful to have that unit. And maybe we can have you back on the show one day and you can brag about your husband, and we can talk about what it looks like to have a supportive relationship in the new earth. That would be great because we need those models. And your children, they must be delighted with being loved by you.
well, thank you. I hope that that's their experience. I want to believe that that's their experience.
Yeah.
So, fingers crossed, we do the best we can.
Yeah.
And I always say your self-love is the most important. So, your self-love and your desire to be loved, self-love is most important.
Yeah. Margaret Fields, thank you so much for joining us today and coming on right after your vacation. I hope that you have a wonderful integration experience now that you're back home. And we're going to take a break on the Kornelia Stephanie Show. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to the Kornelia Stephanie Show. My next guest is Demetria Buie. She is a successful entrepreneur who has overcome incredible odds to achieve her dreams. From being a high school dropout to living in a dysfunctional family in a group home, Demetria has seen it all. But with her determination and grit, she turned things around and now shares her story in From Broken Woman to Businesswoman, which is a book. This book provides 12 simple steps to help readers become successful entrepreneurs and achieve their goals. Demetria is proof that anyone can succeed with hard work and a positive mindset. Before I, came live for this particular segment, I was asking Demetria, what is it that she wants to highlight today? What is the message that she really wants to bring out? And she said, what I really want to tell people is that I know who I am. I know who I am, and I don't need anybody else's permission to be who I am. And then I said to her, well, congratulations, because anytime a person says, I know who I am, that means that, boom, there is one on team that is here, that is in the self-realization, in the awakening of knowing who they are, because that's our journey here, is to remember who we are. Demetria Buie, welcome to the show today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh my gosh. So uh, now that we told the audience that you know who it is that you are and you're not seeking permission from anyone about how to live the life of your dreams or create the life of your dreams, that you've gone from being broken, completely broken to being a successful woman in your own right and creating and living life according to your own dream and according to your own beat of the drum, so if you will. And so, but before you got to that place, break it down. Like, tell us, like, where was it? Like, because you talked about dysfunctional family. You talked about, so you also said it was a long journey. So what was it? How did you feel? I want to hear how you felt in that journey.
Yes. So my journey, it started when I was a teenager. And when I wrote my book, I knew that I had to go back. Like, where is all of this bitterness, unforgiveness? Where is all this coming from? And I really didn't want to go into the past, but I knew that I had to in order to move forward in my life. As a teenager growing up, I never really felt loved. My dad was kind of abusive, in the home. And I was almost molested when I was 16, and there was a witness. And so when that happened, it affected my relationships in my adulthood. And not only romantically, but just relationships, period. And I became a people pleaser. Like, I just wanted to please everybody because when I was 16, I felt like, what happened to me was my fault. And so basically, I just needed approval for anything that I wanted to do, or absolutely anything. Even in my first marriage, I didn't want to get married, but he asked, and I didn't want him to be disappointed or say, this is your fault of why we're not together. And so just during my life, that was just, I was just a people pleaser. I needed validation. Didn't really know exactly who I was. And I ended up going through 2 divorces in my life. Junior high dropout. I was homeless at 21. And I remember when I was 21 and I was homeless, and I walked into the Goodwill store and I had on raggedy clothes. And I remember meeting this lady, and she bought me a notebook, and she bought me a book and a pen. And I had a car prior 2 years, and I went to that car and I was just crying. I was like, I'm going to live or I'm going to die. And so just from everything from my past, I needed to start writing, even though, in the house, it was told, don't tell what went on in this house. But I was like, well, they didn't say don't write about it. They said don't talk about it. So I started just journaling. I didn't even know I was going to turn it into a book until later. But I just started journaling from like things that I can remember, because everything that was being held in, it was hurting me. I didn't know what to do with my life at all.
Yeah. So, wow. I'm always impressed when I hear somebody's story when they talked about being homeless. And, when they talked about, how do you go from being homeless to, how do you go from being homeless to being successful and actually coming out of that and rising out of that? And I'm a big, fan of, this is how I healed myself also, with the pen and the pad. Okay. Because that is like, because now you're listening to yourself and you're looking at the pain that's there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking at everything that needs love and that needs your attention. So I just want to say, I know that is not an easy journey. But one question I had for you, when you were talking and you were saying that, you were a people pleaser, I can identify with that also, because I also was a people pleaser, where I would ask people for permission, or what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? Should I do it like this, or should I do it like this? Right. And so when was the first time when you said, I'm not going to ask anybody anymore?
Wow. My wake up call was in my second marriage. I had went to the doctor, and they told me I had high blood pressure. I had high cholesterol. I was pre-diabetic. I seen a scale of 310 for the first time ever in my life. I have never been 310. All of these problems was coming up because I was stress eating. I was depressed and everything. And going back to the car, and I told my then husband, what was going on. And only thing he could ask for was money to buy alcohol. That was my biggest wake up call. It was my health. And then I knew that I had been writing books, doing things that other people wanted me to do, because we were in the religious community. And, I didn't want to write what I wanted to write because I was like, this is not going to please them. And so after that, leaving that doctor's office, I filed for a divorce. And I said, there's more to me in life. I've been through a lot. And I said, I started with affirmations. After that divorce, I started with affirmations because I never felt like I was beautiful. And so it was every day. It took a minute. So I stopped all the dating. And because a ripple of my life was relationship after relationship after relationship. And I said, I've never taken the time to find out what truly makes me happy. Who am I? What type of writer am I really? I had an idea, and I knew that I was a romance thriller writer. Like, this is who I am. And so, my first novel comes out this winter. But when I was writing the book, I was beyond happy. I was like, this is me as a writer. And the scenes was just flourishing. They was just coming out. And I was like, this is me as a writer, whether anybody likes what I write or not. This is me. This is what makes me happy. And every day, I was listening to affirmations, and then I came up with my own that, I am beautiful. I am worthy. I am loved. And it was just a lot of them. And I would look in the mirror. And at first it was hard, because of words that was spoken over my life, like, you'll never be anything. You're ugly. You're this. And so I didn't know that I had the power to denounce those words from over my life. I thought they was just going to stick with me. And when somebody said, like, you'll never be this, you'll never be that, you can't do that, I thought that's what it was. But I took my power back into my hands, a power that I actually never had. But I took it and I said, you know what, this is who I am, and this is who I'm going to be. And I followed my path. And I became thankful every single day, writing down what I'm thankful for, and walking outside and just connecting with nature. No longer telling people my visions, my hopes, my dreams. I keep those to myself. And when they come to pass, I might share one or two here or there, but it has really just helped me go to the next level, and I write things down as though it's already happened. And I write down what I desire and what I want, and I see it come to pass, so yeah.
That's so inspiring. I'm so inspired by you. I'm like, yes, 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 yes. You're saying so many things that are so real and that are true, and that it's absolutely universal knowledge, wisdom that you're sharing, of what, how you had to stand alone. You had to stand alone. And standing alone when you've given your power away to outside sources before, all of a sudden, when you're standing alone, you're like, God, this feels so uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
just sitting with yourself, just yourself, and that your word, whatever you're receiving, whatever you're journaling, whatever you're desiring, that is enough.
Yes.
That is enough, and that is meaningful. So a couple things I want to ask you about. So when you said that you don't share your visions, your dreams, you don't really share those out when they come to pass, then you might share one or two. And do you have a reason for doing that?
Oh, yes. Through my life, I asked myself, and it took a lot of self-talk, and I asked myself, like, why wasn't I seeing anything come to pass? Why was I so discouraged, when I shared? And I was on the phone all the time sharing, oh yeah, I'm going to do this next. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And, some people was just like, oh, I don't think you can do that. Oh, somebody else already did it. Oh, this. And so it degrounded my faith. And so here I am. I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore. My faith is not up here. My vibrations is not up here anymore. And so basically, I was never really seeing anything come to pass. So for me, I don't share everything no more. I'm not a people pleaser anymore. I don't need validation from anything that I desire. And so that's the reason why I don't share a lot of things. And I'm very, just about letting people into my space, that energy, because it's like that intuition. I feel that that's the greatest gift that God has given us. Your intuition, that gut feeling. And that was something that I never listened to. Even with getting into the marriage, it was like, don't do it. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do it anyway. I'll change the person. And I ignored that intuition for years, mostly all of my life. And so now it's kind of like, don't ignore it. Whether if it feels uncomfortable or whatever, don't ignore your intuition, that gut feeling, even if you have to be by yourself or, be in that alone space, but you're not lonely,
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good what you're saying. I want to have you back on the show. I want to talk to you.
Yes.
Let's have you on again. Let's talk about another let's get, have another conversation about this
Yeah.
because I want to talk about God. I want to talk about, because when you know who you are, you know that
Yeah.
also. So
Oh, yeah.
that's definitely a conversation that we can have in the future. So
Yeah.
make sure that you talk to Ashley to have you come back on maybe in about a month from now and put you back
Okay.
on the show
Yes.
and have another conversation with you. I would, you have got the secret. You've got it. You've got it. And I think more people need to hear you. More people need to hear your story. So it's important. Let's tell everybody, first of all, where they can find you on social media and where they can, how do you work with people? Or do you do coaching or are you just selling books or what do you do?
So I am on Instagram at Demetria for real, FOR. And so basically, I host yearly events for female entrepreneurs. So this year we'll be in Hollywood in September the 15th and the 16th. We'll be doing yoga classes, meditation, affirmations. I have speakers coming in. We have a live band, champagne wall, fruits, swag bags from different vendors and different things like that. So, and I am a writer. So, yes, my books are on my website and my events are on there. I have some free things that I offer also.
What's the website?
So, it is on Linktree.
Okay.
And yes, and so everything I can definitely send that website. So you go to that website and everything, that I do is, on that
Well,
on that.
so what we want to do, because when people are listening to this in the car or whatever, or if you're
Mhm.
listening to this on YouTube, and Demetria, when you get the YouTube replay next week
Yes.
on social media, just put your website Linktree information underneath, and so that
Yes.
you can have access to it right away. Because
Yes.
we want to make it easy for everybody. But
Yes.
very inspired by you. I cheer you on. I celebrate you. It's wonderful what you're doing out there, helping people really rise into their highest and best. And you've got amazing tips that you can give people on that self-love and standing strong and really trusting yourself and listening to your intuition and your higher guidance. And that's why you came here. You came here to remember who you are. So I definitely want to keep in touch with you. Come back to the show.
Most definitely. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today. We're going to take a break on the Kornelia Stephanie Show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Kornelia Stephanie Show. I'm super excited to introduce us to our next guest. And Dawn Pig Benson, she is a soulful travel coach who helps women experience personal and spiritual awakening through solo travel. She specializes in working with women who are 40 plus and feel stuck or are at a crossroads in their life, career, or relationship. Through her small group coaching program, Brave Journey, Dawn helps women rediscover themselves, plan their dream trip and be part of a squad of like-minded women doing the same and cheering them on in the process. Dawn is the founder and owner of Globe Story and has lived in or traveled to more than 48 countries. She's a global ambassador for the Travel Coach Network, a certified cultural intelligence facilitator, and has appeared in publications such as the Washington Post, TripAdvisor, and Women's World magazine. Woohoo! All those women out there that are looking to start their own business or ignite and jumpstart a whole new career, then this segment is for you. And all those women out there that are looking to travel and find new ways, cultural ways of living, this segment is for you. Welcome to the show today, Dawn.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, I just love what you do. Now, how did you get started in this career and how long have you been doing it?
Okay. So I have kind of a fun story behind how I got started. Around 2019, I went through a divorce, and I had planned on going overseas for several months afterwards. It just so happened that the trip literally started about 5 or 6 days after everything was finalized, which I did not plan, but everything always sort of takes longer sometimes than you expect. And so I found myself on this plane going overseas. I was and still am a copywriter and brand messaging strategist, and that was my my main career for most of my life. But I found myself on this plane, kind of realizing that I needed to reimagine my future, and also feeling a little bit kind of bored with the work I was doing, and looking for a way of, I was considering starting another business in a way that I could use my skills and my experience, and kind of make a difference in other people's lives in a more direct way. So I just started to really look at that and try to figure out what might I do. And I knew there were some things that I was interested in, and so I went overseas, and I basically kind of based out of the country of Kosovo in Eastern Europe. But I also traveled to some different places like Macedonia and Albania, and I think I went to Greece at that time. And my very last place I went was Montenegro before, and it was about 2 weeks before I was done with this entire 3-month-long journey. I was lucky that I work remotely, so I could do a long trip. And it just gave me this space to really think about what I wanted and everything. But I was coming to the end, and I still felt kind of stuck. Like I wasn't sure what exactly I wanted to do next. And I had this imagined having it all figured out in a couple of months. I'd come back and I'd have a new business idea and all these things. And so here I am in couture. And I remember having a conversation on the phone with my therapist at the time, and he had used this term of, he was like, you have this beautiful blank canvas on which to kind of reimagine your life. And I remember hating that term, and so I started referring it to as that damn blank canvas. And so and he was like, what don't you like about this? And I said, it's because it's white. I don't know what to put on it. It's scary to me. Like I don't even know where to start. Like, what do I do? And so so I'm in this beautiful location. I went to Kotor, Montenegro, which is an ancient city with stone streets and a stone wall, and it has this bay that's surrounded by mountains. And so I am there, and I'm frustrated. I'm like, I've only got a couple of weeks left, and I have not figured out my life yet. And so I decided to just go out into the water and just float and just see this beautiful place. And I thought maybe I'll have some sort of inspiration. And so, you know how when you float, you hear like everything around you just seems, everything around you can hear the noise and stuff, but it's real muffled. And what you really can hear loudly is yourself, like if you spoke, or your heart beating, and, all those things. And it was this beautiful way at which I remember floating, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is how I feel if only I could feel this in my life, where, like, all these voices are so loud around me as to what I should do. And I get on social media, and there's all these opinions, and I just need to listen to myself. So I just stopped and I said, okay, universe, speak to me. God, what do I do? And I heard this interior voice that just said, what if you just choose a color and begin? what if you just pick the color that you like best and start there? Let curiosity lead. So take those things that you're curious about. Like for me, it was mentoring women and working with women, and I love travel, and I couldn't figure out how to put all it together. I thought that I had to have this beautiful, there's this quote by Picasso that says, to know what you're going to draw, you have to begin drawing. And I thought that I had to have this whole picture, this business plan figured out first. But what I really needed to do was just look at, I really like working with women, and I really like women, they're often asking me for advice. Maybe I could be a coach. What would that look like? Would that be life coaching? But I love travel too. How can I, so it just took me down this path and gave me permission to come home. And I just started looking at, okay, what am I curious about? I don't have to have this all figured out, but this is what I'm interested in. And then this is what I'm interested in. And then somehow through that process, I found travel coaching, and I just thought, oh my gosh, this is perfect. I wanted to mentor women. I just went on this amazing travel experience in which I gave myself space to get clarity on my life. And it happened in this really beautiful way of me floating, going, just pick a color. Just pick a color and start. Like, if you don't like it, you can paint over it, because that also adds richness and texture. So it's just giving yourself permission. So now that's kind of what I do with women, is give them permission to just decide what, they're interested in a trip. What do you think might bring your soul alive? And let's look at that. Let's imagine what that extraordinary trip could look like. And then you get to pick that piece, that brush, and begin to paint it, and have that same kind of experience.
So basically, the women that you're coaching now, you're not necessarily taking them on a trip. You're coaching them on how to create their own trips. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Because I believe that planning your own trip is really empowering. So I teach them, I do a group program. And so they all come in, and the women who are in my group are usually coming in knowing they want to go on a trip. Usually they want to go on a solo trip because they're in this kind of crossroads in their life, and I'm trying to figure out what's next. And so they come in, and you talk about, I have them look at, kind of imagine the most extraordinary trip they could ever go on. And then we look at that, and often these words bubble up, like, I'm looking to feel brave, or I want to feel more confident, or I just need some peace. And so we look at those words, and those kind of are telltales of where you might go and what you might do. So if you wanted to feel brave, you might go somewhere a little bit more unusual, or maybe you just figure out, like, your transportation's a little more complicated. Maybe you decide I'm going to take a bus. So looking at, or, if you want it to be peaceful, just you pick a quiet place. You don't go skydiving, right? So having them figure out what those words are for them, and then as a group, we move into planning it together. They're all planning their own trips, but then you're physically going on a solo trip, but mentally you have this entire community of people just cheering you on and celebrating the trip that you're about to embark on. And so they do it together, but actually do the traveling alone.
I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking, my God, what a brilliant way to do this, because that's a whole different way than planning a trip. It's entirely different than normally you would plan a trip or think about a trip or what you're doing. So it's really, like you said, it's empowering. I really like that.
Yeah.
So
I'm very into, the self-discovery piece is important. I think that's important to transformation. So again, just really thinking about your trip with intentionality.
Yeah, I'm curious as to, your marketing also, like when you're marketing out to the world, to the women, does it say, are you ready to create the trip of a lifetime, or, what your marketing is? Does it say that I help you to create the trip of a lifetime? I help you to discover yourself in this trip?
There's variations of that. To be honest, I'm still learning. So it's interesting even to hear your feedback of because I've been doing this for about officially for about a year.
Yeah.
So I'm still learning the kinds of women that are interested, and not making it sound too big. One of the things I like to say is that I help people make solo travel less scary and more magical.
Oops, what happened? There you are.
Oh.
That you help people make what?
Solo travel, less scary and more magical. So I've used that a little bit, but yeah, planning a trip.
But maybe listen to this replay later because what I said, you might want to look at some of that. But I had another question for you. The question was, when you were in your magical place where you were at and you were frustrated at that time, and then you went floating and you said, I only have 2 weeks left, maybe I'll just go float. And then you were floating. So you had that 2 weeks left. Did it come to you during that 2 weeks of time? Maybe just start with the one color. Did that happen in that 2 weeks that you were there?
Yes, the starting with one color, it was literally, I'm floating, and it was like I heard this voice that just kind of said, just pick a color. And I remember actually just popping my head up and going, oh my gosh, is it really that simple? Because I had put so much pressure on myself, thinking I have to figure it all out. I have to come home with this whole formulated idea of my life is now going to look like this. And really what I just needed to do was take a step, and one step leads to the next. And you can't always see what's around the corner, right? So you just kind of have to take one step at a time. And it made it less scary to me to figure everything out. Because otherwise you're like, oh my gosh, I have to figure out my entire life in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I just think this is brilliant. And the fact that, that you had that 2 weeks, I think this is a big piece for everybody to hear, that again, going on a trip like this, or when you're at a crossroads, it doesn't mean that you have to have it all figured out. It's just creating the space, that you did. I'm going floating. I'm just going to float, and then listening. And that the voice came and you were curious and all of that. And that happened, and you took that pressure off, you took the pressure away. But it can happen for anybody in 2 weeks, is what I'm trying to say, that it doesn't have to take, a long time, because your first step can be revealed in a week. It can be revealed in 2 weeks. It can be in a day. It has to be when you're really ready, which I think that it's brilliant. And the way that you're talking about creating with the next step. Our life isn't supposed to be figured out all at once, where because that's always the ego that wants to have it all figured out and wants A type. I need to know point A to point B. I need to have it all figured out. But it is about your creating your dream life, and then you being able to get the next piece and the next piece according to your desires, like what's next, because you're always going to want to engage that inner curiosity, that inner listening, and all of that. So I'm inspired, and I definitely want to hear more and talk to you again. And let's tell the audience right now how they can look you up on social media or any other platform, website that you have.
Yeah, my website is my full name, Dawn Pick Benson. So it's DAWN, P as in Paul, ICK, B as in boy, ENSON, all one word. And then on Instagram, it's also at Dawn Pick Benson. I believe on Facebook, it's Globe Story that you would look at. I'm sure you guys have the links there, but the easiest is just, in most social medias, is just my full name altogether.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really great. I want to thank you so much for inspiring us today and giving us the vision and the imagination to look at how creating our life differently. I love the story you told, so I'm inspired by you. And I want to thank the audience today for listening and tuning in. And Dawn, just so you know, that the replay link for your audience, that they can listen to the replay, it's the same, the Transformation Talk Radio link, and we'll be sending you the YouTube link so that you can also put your information into the comments below. So thank you, everybody, for listening. We hope you were inspired today with the stories of hope. Let's co-create our new earth together with being curious and listening to our intuition. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Kornelia Stephanie Show, Wake Up to Love, your call to action. Tune in each week on Transformation Talk Radio. Kornelia's joy is to engage others in practical ways, showing us how to live in the new earth in harmony with our true nature. For more information on Kornelia and her extraordinary work, or to listen to past shows, go to her website at korneliastephanie.com.